Now, if we look at our excluded cohort of young people, we know they're 4 times higher chance if they're free school meals. We know there's a double chance if they're EHCPs. We know that there's 5 times higher the chance if they are identified as SEN. We know that children with social workers are 4 times higher to be excluded. We know that care experienced young people are 3 times more likely to be excluded. We know certain ethnic groups are 6 times higher. And we know areas like the Northeast are 4 times higher than the Southeast. We know all this. So what are we doing to challenge it? Because when we look at the young people and the experiences that they've had, we have to look at the sources of their anxiety. And when we look at the sources of their anxiety, it makes it much harder to blame everybody else. It makes it much harder to deny its existence. It means that we've got to be properly looking at it and what can we do as an antidote to it. Now, there's no doubt that some children get overwhelmed very quickly and lose control very quickly and do some very extreme behaviours, but not many of our children will just flip like that. Most of our children, there is a warning, there is a build up, and we need to be wiser to it. Now, separating behaviour into good or bad binary categories is just really, really unhelpful in our school systems. Now, I've led schools and I'm not naive enough to know that we don't need systems in place. But for the children that are struggling within the systems, we need something different and we need to be more curious. And what lies behind a lot of the behaviours that our young people are displaying will be fear, and what that fear will result in anxiety. And those fears that we're looking at aren't your obvious ones. It's not I'm scared, automatic response, I'm about to fight a tiger kind of fears. We're talking about things that build up over time, that are based on experiences and context for our young people. So we're going to have a look at 6 different fears. Now, where we need to be honest with ourselves is our school system combating these fears, or is it feeding into them? Now, when we actually break it down and we look at the young people's experiences, these fears are really, really logical. And when we actually understand where they're coming from, how we feel about these behaviours starts to really shift, because we're no longer going to take these things personally. And now we're going to be thinking about, rather than how to change the behaviour, let's start to change the way this young person feels. Now, based on the world that these young people have tried to navigate, based on the feelings that they've got, you will have young people in every classroom who have a fear of failure, a fear of rejection, a fear of uncertainty and unpredictability, a fear of the unknown, a fear of unfamiliarity, and the biggest fear of all is feeling out of control. If you are a young person who has navigated chaos for a lot of your life, then wanting control of something is really, really important. And the worst thing that we can do is remove all control and all autonomy from that child's life, because that's just going to increase that fear exponentially for them. Now, I'm going to do videos for each fear individually, but just a little few bits to go on each one. So you've got a young person in your classroom who work avoids. They refuse, they answer back, they talk over you, they ignore what you say to them. Easy to look at these things as work avoidance strategies, but in reality, if you scratch below the surface for a lot of our young people, what you actually find there is that there is a huge fear of failure. So it's a safety mechanism, it's a maladaptive survival strategy some will display. Now, you'll also have children in your classroom that struggle socially. And it's one of the big things post-COVID, social skills is children won't join in groups, they won't play, they can't turn take, they're dominating games. All of these things linked to child development for children that are having less and less interaction at a younger age. So withdrawal is a safer option, refusing to join in. So dominating other young people that they think are weaker than them makes it a safer option. Rejecting first is a sensible thing. Losing control to sabotage friendships. These behaviours are survival strategies. There will be children in your classroom that have been surrounded by unpredictable adults. There's no consistency at home. If there's no consistency, there's no predictability, then that's scary. And so they will try to manipulate adults to be more consistent. They will try to manipulate other children to be more consistent and more predictable. And again, who are the most unpredictable people in any classroom? It is the other children. And what do we do with the unpredictable children? We put them into a different classroom with other unpredictable children, and then we wonder why they really struggle. But more importantly, if you look at triggers, the biggest trigger for a lot of our young people is change. And change is because it's not predictable anymore, and therefore they don't feel safe anymore, and that's going to set them off in a really negative way. Now, linked to that, but slightly different, is the fear of the unknown. And I listened to the brilliant Lisa Cherry talk the other week about liminality and space in between. And that is where a lot of our young people currently find themselves, especially when we're looking at transitions. Now, whether that's a small transition during a lesson, or whether that's a massive transition like moving from year 6 to year 7, these are all going to be a huge source of anxiety for our young people. Fear of transition is going to be massive for them. So again, we've got to be aware of these things for those young people. There are also going to be children in your classrooms who don't have a brilliant inner working model of themselves. They don't believe they can be successful. They don't believe they can do well and things along those lines. And so being successful is unfamiliar to them. And anything that's unfamiliar is scary. So you'll have some young people that are constantly getting detentions and isolations and exclusions, because that's what's familiar and that's what's safe. If we get to a position where praise is scary, being successful is scary, being included is scary, being kind is scary, then we've got a real job to do. But this is the reality for some of our young people. Now, those 5 are present in every classroom, but what's in the middle? What's the big one? Well, what lies in the middle of it is a fear of losing control. You've navigated a world of chaos. You now are trying to find something that you can control. And if we're honest about our children in schools, what can they control? We are controlling literally every element of their school day. And so the only thing that they can control is their behaviour. Nothing we threaten in a behaviourist system, there is no consequence that is worse than that feeling of being out of control for these young people. So expecting a behaviourist system to work makes zero sense. We have got to combat these fears and this anxiety in order to make changes to the way young people feel and their behaviour.